Hello and welcome to Stampscapes Live. We have a foundation here for a scene, campfire, new stamp, and these two kind of figures are from another set in the new line. This is going to be a nighttime situation, and my idea is I want to see these kind of embers coming up from the campfire and going into the night sky filled with stars. So it's like the embers are kind of becoming stars visually. That's the concept. Let's see how it goes here. I'm working on a very narrow card here. It's 4¼ by 10 inches, and I want to put some desert flora in here in the form of some Joshua trees and things like that. I'm not sure where I have space for it though, so I'm going to have to incorporate them in at the end. I figured I wanted them to be nice and dark, so we'll apply all of our tones on here and then stamp them out, hoping to kind of retain a more crisp impression by doing those types of things last. And plus I can see how dark things are going to be at that point in time, and that will kind of inform where I want to put some of my, the placement of some of these other kind of bolder objects. I was probably going to go with these Joshua trees right here, or these organ pipe cacti. I'm not sure though. Oh, I have my other saguaro. Oh, okay, here we go. I have my other saguaros here, though, and those might be a little bit better because they're a little bit more narrow, and they'd also kind of go with the elongated format of this piece. So let's just, I don't know, let's see how that goes and see how things develop. It's usually how I start off with these scenes. I have a very kind of vague kind of notion of kind of the gist of what I want, but I don't know exactly how they'll fall into place until I get there. So we'll see. Okay, cloud cumulus. I'm wiping off this perimeter here because I'm going to have these clouds going up into these other star formations up here. And I'm wiping off the bottom where it's going to go right into these rocks. We'll stamp them out in a light, or kind of a medium brown, like this. Actually, there was black on there before, so it's blackish medium brown. It looks okay though. It looks, I don't know, a little bit varied. Now this second one's probably going to be much more brown because I've used up a lot of the black that was in the cloud stem because I didn't clean it off. Okay, now this area right here is going to be overlapping that figure, so let's wipe off a little bit more tone off right here, okay, because that's going to be that area. I want her to stand out quite a bit, so you just kind of wipe off the area like so and just stamp right over the top. And if you've removed enough ink, you'll retain the silhouette of the image in the foreground, like that, okay? So let's keep it, everything's fairly static right here. We have these rocks going horizontally, these forms are right here. It's going to be a largely kind of elongated vertical column of light that I'm going after right here. So what I'm getting at right here is we're going to vary this sky a little bit more, just so we get a little bit more visual movement in the scene, and it's really easy to do that by having some diagonally placed objects within your scene. It creates a little bit of movement because it's like gravity, you know, things are just like sliding down. I've wiped off a lot the bottom edge of this where it's going to be overlapping into this cloud right here. You could do things where you mask off these clouds and you stamp it, but if you just kind of wipe off the edges and do that little process, you get a very, very graceful transition in here, and you don't get a lot of the rectangle shapes, okay? So when you stamp this out, don't rock it like this either. You're not trying to get like a more firm impression, just light, even pressure. And then if you have this area on the edge wiped off the perimeter, not just the very edge, but you'll get a really graceful transition in there, and it makes for an easy image blend. Hello, Linda Cat. How are you? Hope you are having a nice weekend. Yeah, did you see that campfire, Linda, of Deanna's? You probably did, huh? Insane. That scene. It looks so good. It's like, okay, I got to use that. All right, let's see here. If anyone's not on Facebook, Deanna Tubsidio uploaded a file, a scene, using the campfire, and it had the cabins in the background and like a couple flanking trees, I think. So it was like this kind of opening into this area with the cabin in the back, and that campfire was like glowing kind of orange in the foreground. It was really cool. A lot of detail in those background trees too that she did. It was like I don't know, that scene really shimmered. Okay, see, that's kind of this motion right here. You only have this kind of motion going down like that. Doesn't it have like a different kind of dynamic look to it by going that way? I mean, it just depends on what you want to do. Let's do this too. Here, we'll have a little bit of a kind of an opening here to the night sky, which is kind of fun to do. So we have, I'll fill in something right there too, but I'll go like this so that we have this kind of sloping, opening to the night sky. I like to kind of keep it a little bit more kind of S-curvy if I can. So maybe I'll go from this, we'll do this right here, okay? I mean, there's all kinds of things. You can cap it off and have a little bit of space. It's really fun to, kind of have a little bit of an opening in the sky. And what I was thinking about doing possibly is adding like a glow-in-the-dark moon up there. I might want to keep this one more star-like, though. But, if it needs something a little bit more bold in that sky, then maybe add that glow-in-the-dark. That was glow-in-the-dark material there. I'll add that up there, and kind of adds an extra little element of fun into the scene. Okay, so we have this going right here. All right, and let's see, in that center area, we'll do some masking here. And let's go with, we have the nebula here. Spiral galaxy, that might be kind of interesting. Maybe I don't have enough space for that spiral galaxy. I'll go with the Starbirth here. Starbirth's a little bit more whimsical than the Milky Way stamp. Sometimes I use them in conjunction with one another because this one has more of like a focal point of stars because they're a little bit bigger. This one is inspired by one of those early Hubble telescope images that came back. I was like, wow. I don't know when it was. 30 years. I don't know how long ago it was. Okay, I'm trying to decide on what color to do this in. The dark, or this brown right here, kind of, I think I'd want, I think I want a combination maybe not this dark, which is dark brown. This one might be too light here. So I tell you what, let's do a combination of it. It might be a combination. Let me see how this pen's working here. This is a big thick brush marker. Actually, that is a pretty dark brown. It's a lot darker than I thought it would be. Let me see if I have a lighter brown. Something like this. This one says light brown, so let's see if it's a little bit dry though. But let's see if we can get... Actually, being that it's dry, it might be better. Because it's kind of sopping up some of that ink. I could see it's like a lighter... I don't know if you can see that. Here, I'll get through this real fast if I can. Okay, so it's a little bit darker around the perimeter. And let's see, let's do that thing where we kind of mop off the edge here. Actually, I'm mopping off pretty good. I was going to mask off these clouds right here, but if I take off enough ink right here, I'm going about a ½ inch into it, but then I'm a little bit heavier, about a ¼ inch into it, so it's going from wet, driest, okay? So it's transitioning a little bit. Sometimes when you do that, and plus I'm going to be doing so much coloring in here, but I'm just going to plop this right down in here like that, instead of masking off all my clouds and having kind of a wetter, darker edge. I just wipe it off like that, and it should kind of remove the need to mask off. Now up here, I'm not sure. This is really lighter, you know, quite a bit lighter up there. So maybe I'll do that. Okay, that's kind of, those stars right there are very bold. So maybe we'll switch off to the Milky Way right here. They're not going to exactly match up visually, but we're going to blend them in anyways with a lot of different tones and media afterwards, okay? Let's see. Let's go this here. I'll go a little bit more center applied. I didn't apply too much around on the perimeter. And then let's do this. Let's go in and I'm just kind of scribbling in here a little bit like this to get it a little bit varied. The more I scribble on with this one, it's removing more of the darker ink. I don't know if it's going to be very blended. Well, here, let me try to blend in a little bit more. You don't have to spend too much time because we're going to be like layering a lot of ink on here, acrylic paint pens and stuff like that. But you get it, you know, reasonably blended, you know, in terms of the surface as you can. I wouldn't spend a huge amount of time with that. For me, that's not where the fun of the applications are. The fun is like, I don't know, it's like, you know, adding colors and blending and layering and all that. Okay, so I've wiped off a lot of this perimeter right here. So I'm using this kind of area right in between here because it's a very narrow area. And let's see, I'm going like right here, I think, okay? So let's do the... yeah. I was wondering if I removed enough. Yeah, okay. That was enough. So it fit right in there. We have a little bit of space right there. Let's do this. Okay, let's see, it's right there. And I'm just gonna fill that in. You can fill it in with just like some tone too, but you know, just doing it with the stamp like that makes it really easy, okay? So seamless, guys. Wipe off your perimeters pretty good. ½ inch, even an inch sometimes, and transition it going from wet to dry. Sometimes when it's a really dark color, and you just kind of dab on like this, happens to me all the time. Like if I just re-ink my pad, sometimes I don't want to take off too much where there's nothing on there, but sometimes it's like, I dab off like this and I stamp it out and it was like as dark as if I didn't wipe any off at all. So if if you're uncertain, you can just do a test print of it or something like that and just see what it looks like, re-ink it and then, you know, remove accordingly. All right, let's see. Am I done with this? Those eagles up there might be kind of interesting. I'll leave this out just in case. Hello, Candy. How are you? Order receipt. Oh, great, Candy. I hope you enjoy those. Looking forward to seeing what you do. All right. Let's see here. Okay, so this is a little bit different because I have this. It's going to be the influence of that fire going kind of up into the sky. I'm wondering if I should have kept more or had more stars and less clouds. I know those clouds are pretty dramatic though. Okay, here, let's do this too. I need to heat set a little bit. All right, that's not going to keep this from, I don't know, kind of blurring a little bit, smearing a little bit. But it locks it down for the most part. Different inks, different dried ink residue amounts on the surface. Sometimes if you're working with a super, super juicy pad, when you're stamping down, dye-based inks work by absorption and staining for the most part. Okay, so the thicker the ink, the more surface retention there is, which can be good sometimes because it might create a more intense, darker, and brighter impression because the ink's not absorbing in so much. But sometimes when you have residue on that surface and you're applying additional tones, that has a tendency to smear. So just, I don't know, just be mindful of that. You can always change inks if you're getting too much of that. If you're coloring with dye-based inks and you stamp it with StazOn, that should be, you know, StazOn should be locked down pretty well with that solvent ink type of characteristic. Or you can switch to a semi-gloss or something like that. This one's glossy. Semi-gloss too. You know, there's just more absorption with the semi-gloss. Okay, so I've been using my peach Bellini here just because I have that on hand here. I need to see if I have a pale orange Marvy sometime. That one's a really good base layer coat too. So as far as this one goes, just something, I'm going for a warm base layer. Yeah, I don't have a pale orange anywhere here. I haven't really thought about that, but that would be a good one. I'm just using this just because I have so much of it. Or I don't know, at least in that bottle. We used to sell those because it really created a nice foundation for people if they're working on glossy cardstock and they're building up a lot of tone. It just made it so much easier for people to blend their colors on there. So, hello, Cynthia. How are you, Sharita? All right, so let's start going in here. Stars, I want some of these stars to remain nice and light. I want some of my areas of my clouds to remain light, like it's capturing or reflecting the starlight in there. So when you start applying in here, like so, you can see how light this tone is. That's why and this is a really wet, paper towel here too, right? So when you start off really light like this, and we don't jump into the darker tones really fast, it's really easy to control this color and how much is applied. Because if you apply too much, it's like such a light color, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so, and you can watch things develop really, it develops really quickly, but it's such a light color, in the grand scheme of things. Your lighting scheme is developing slowly, but the application of this is going on quickly though, see? So, see this kind of darker area in the clouds right here? Which is right here, okay? I'm just following that kind of guide right there. See, it's darker right here. So you just darken in the darks like that and retain some of those lighter areas. Okay, now after I do that, I start to kind of encroach on some of those other light areas. Okay, so over this, I want just the, kind of this overall darker vignette on the outside. So even if there is a light portion of that cloud there, I'll probably darken it in a little bit or a lot. But I'll retain this light portion of that center one because there'll be like a corridor of light right in here. So in other words, I'm just making it darker on the perimeter, okay? Now see these areas right in here, I use my tiny rock small to add tone at the base of these rocks that were stamped in here, okay? Just to speed things up. And I'm going to go into those areas like this and color that in. This isn't just dye-based inks on glossy cardstock. This is the same type of kind of lighting structure, so you can do these same types of things with whatever media you're working with. If you're working in colored pencils, you know, you can do that same vignette, same lighting scheme, you know, or a similar lighting scheme if you want to. You're just applying it with different media. And if you watched, you know, some of my other videos on just simple lighting schemes, you know, it's largely going to be kind of lighter up here. And then I have my area of light down here, and it's divided by tone across there. Now, I don't want just this big area of light up here, so I'm kind of like bisecting it, you know, like this, you know, so it's like light, dark, dark, light, dark, that type of thing. So I just kind of leave it open and I start going into things a little bit more just to I don't know, create, you know, more areas of light and I don't know what contrast. So you make these areas a little bit lighter. If you make one area, you know, whatever 5% darker, the light areas seem, you know, that percentage lighter by contrast. So if you ever make anything like way too dark, oh my God, I lost all my white or lost all my light in some situation by going over it with a certain tone, you just make the area next to it a little bit darker, and then that'll make that area that you thought was way too dark, it'll make it look lighter. It's not going to make it lighter physically, but it'll look lighter optically because of, you know, whatever contrast perception. Okay, now my little figures here, I'm going to keep those two in the light because they're like little, whatever, subject actors on stage. So I won't apply too much tone around them. Yeah, a little, you know, mostly with the darker tones. Okay, now in here, if I don't color in here a little bit, it looks a little anemic. Okay, so I'm coming in with this color. I've lost some of the white of those tiny stars in here, but that's where I go back in and I'll add in some, I can reclaim some of the lightness and texture of those white stars that are now peach Bellini, you know, colored stars with like white paint pens. Okay. Hello, Bonnie. What is the name of the printable glow-in-the-dark vinyl sticker paper? It's in the link for the previous scene that I did. Giravinyl. Do I have that pack? I don't have that pack right next to me here. Yeah, but I put the links up there, Bonnie, to it. I was hoping that there'd be more different brands, and there are, but it seemed like the Giravinyl was still the one to go with, provided you know, you'd make use of 10 sheets over time. I think there was a cheaper pack, but it was a 5-pack, but the price per sheet, now I didn't look extensively, but, you know, if you do a search on like Amazon, you know what I mean? If it doesn't come up in the first page, if it's like, okay, that's all the printable, glow-in-the-dark vinyl sticker paper that is, it's probably not gonna be in like the third or fourth, you know what I mean? Like the third or fourth page or something like that. But yeah, I also found, kind of in my purchase history, okay, I can't remember. I think it was, the price from maybe 3 years ago or something like that. Not to the same one, but the different brand that I bought. I think it was like twice as much, just because there was like one brand of it only. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I thought there'd be more. I was hoping there'd be like 10 different sellers and brands of it at this point in time, but still not. So I think 8.5 by 11 is roughly about $1 or so. Gets a little expensive here if you're using like a whole page for like a scene, like stamping it like on an 8.5 by 11, whole scene, whole glow-in-the-dark scene or something like that. But I'm gonna mostly be using it for light elements, the moons, lanterns, stuff like that. I don't know. I do like stamping on the whole thing though sometimes. Like I was looking at this scene the other day. It has a certain look to it, like just in regular light. But this one's all about flipping off the lights and enjoying it in the dark. Yeah. I didn't realize until, I don't know, whatever, this last week, I guess, that I could color the glow-in-the-dark sticker paper with things like alcohol pens. Okay, so I might have to go back and do that with that one. Just add in a little bit of extra tone and color, visual interest, so that it's not. And those texture tones on there, I think, look pretty good in the dark too. You can kind of see the difference between like these ones down here uncolored and these ones up here in the dark. So I don't know, I'll have to try that. All right, so we're going in here with this one. This one's the brown that we stamped our clouds in, okay? So we're starting to move into the impression colors, and that should start kind of bringing things together a little bit more. Although things blended in pretty well without a foundational impression color being blended in. So like this right here, the structure that's becoming a little bit stronger. That's the type of look that I'm going after usually, but this one's I want this one to be about this fire down here, so I might be taking this area up here a lot darker than I normally would. We'll have to see. Okay, let's make the perimeter a little bit darker too. So I'm going to sacrifice that star right there to kind of a stronger perimeter frame around here. Framing. Hello, Catherine. How are you? When did you do the windmill scene? I don't remember. Yeah, I have no idea. Maybe, I don't know, maybe November? I don't know, I'm not sure. It might come up if you type in some like Stampscapes glow-in-the-dark windmill. If I've tagged it. But I think I did put, there'll be glow-in-the-dark in the materials section. And there's probably like windmill. I've probably tagged the windmill, or tagged the video with the word windmill. when you get into these like a little bit of a darker tone, mid-tones, darker tones, mid to dark maybe, that's when people lose their lighting in their scenes, okay? Because if you go over that area with a darker tone, you lose it instantly, where if you do that same type of application with a much lighter color, it doesn't darken it up so much, okay? So kind of change the rate at which you take your applicator, whatever you're using, into the scene, because it takes more taps for it to get very light. So if you're going into that same region, those same areas within the card, you're doing it with a much, darker tone. So that 20th tapping of like a really dark color is going to be a lot darker sometimes than maybe the first tapping, a damp applicator with your lightest of tones. Okay, so just kind of watch as you're applying. Stay on the outside a little bit longer before you take your applicator in, be it a sponge or anything like that. This type of scenario here, not with these, whatever worshipping figures here, but doing kind of a nighttime type of, this will be a desert when I'm done. I'm going to put in some additional foliage in here. It takes me back to going camping, and I usually did it in the deserts. I like camping in the deserts a little bit more than someplace more of like a pine area or something that has more water, because at nighttime mosquitoes really love me, so I'm getting just constantly attacked. And I have mosquito gear too. Use mosquito repellent. Sometimes we just go places that have it, but they really bother me. And most places in the desert, it's kind of arid. And I'm sure there's some places in the desert, deserts can have like water running, in a lot of these areas for, several months. But for the most part, as far as that aspect, less, a little bit less, blood-sucking pests. All right. 3 colors used? 2. Peach Blaney and brown? Was that it so far? It seems like I've gotten like 3 colors. Long time ago, 9 months ago. Wow. I guess it was, maybe it was when kind of close to when those designs came out then? I don't remember. Boy, that's when I was real kind of young and carefree. That was when I was carefree and bold and branching out and experimenting, with a lot of new and exciting material. All right, there goes the brown. Look at that, how that brown really changes that look right in here. Doesn't it? I don't know, and see, I went right here a little bit. Looks like I came in here a little bit with a much drier version of it like that. Okay. So I went like one step even darker there, so things like that stand out a little bit more by contrast. We're going to use alcohol markers in here too, but this is getting kind of a really good kind of overall foundation going. I mean, there's going to be more dye-based ink coloring than alcohol, but the alcohol will get me into these types of areas right in here. You know, a little shadow underneath the chairs, maybe color in the fire ring, a little bit of a different tone. Okay, we'll anchor these rocks down below here. I used a lot of the this same dark brown in these pebbly textures down here too, so this color really kind of brings those that heavy texturing together a lot more. Linda, do you get attacked by mosquitoes when you go camping? Some people mosquitoes don't bother them. Different, I don't know, whatever. Different blood type or something. I like going hiking around in the Sierra Mountains too, back up and around all these lakes. But man, if I go during a certain time of day or something, I don't know. It's like the mosquitoes, but it's like biting flies. Man, I hate that. So I stamp scenes out of those types of locations more. Because those the stamped locations are mosquito free. All right, there we go, like that. Okay, let's see if I can get a little bit more tone in here. I thought about using the semi-gloss on this one so I can use colored pencils more. But I thought, maybe go with the glossy. Just, I don't know, it's just a little bit more tone retention on here. If you're using, there's a lot of Marvies are really good ones to use, at least in conjunction with other brands. So if you're going to the brown tone scene with Distress Inks, Distress Inks have some really great colors. If you get up to like the third color, the Ranger inks, Memento, a lot of other brands of inks are just thicker, okay? And they made them thicker so they don't, you know, leak off of a raised pad surface, you know, otherwise it would just, if it was, the ink was thicker, it would just run out of that type of material. So they make the inks thicker, but when you're blending and layering like this, layer over layer, it starts to build up more, and then it's like, I am trying to make this darker, apply more, but it is just not going on. So what you have to do is you have to heat set a little bit, or just let it air dry for 10 minutes or something like that, and then go back to it and try to apply more at that point in time. Just you know, don't dry it off completely, because then it makes it harder to kind of blend in with the previous colors. But you just want to take some of that moisture out of it, and you just have to kind of gauge it. And sometimes it's different during different times of year, when it's the temperature's different, whatever, relative humidity. It's like, how fast are your inks evaporating, can play a part. But mostly it's just things like, you know, how wet your pad is, you know, at the time. You know, if you're using like a really super juicy re-inked pad or applicator and you're applying it, it just depends on how much you're building up. Paper matters a little bit too. It's like maybe some are a little bit more absorbent. I don't know. Okay, so let's see here. I'm going to bring in some warm tone in here before I go to some pen work. So a little bit of warmth right in there. We'll make some areas of it a little bit brighter too. Usually for continuity, I would bring in a color that's used in other areas of the scene, but maybe on this one right here, we're trying to emphasize that kind of warm light at the campfire, so maybe I don't bring in any of this anywhere else, maybe. I'll keep that right there just in case. That's a good strategy, Catherine. My sister and her husband, she says I think she said that. I think she said her husband just doesn't get bothered very much, So yeah, can't use it. Not a good strategy for her. Maybe for him, I don't know if he's attacked at all. Oh, he's the preference so that if he's gone, yeah, they come after you. Maybe when he's gone, you need to take like a shirt of his or something like that and have it on like I don't know, have something kind of thing coming out of like a backpack or something like that. And you put his shirt up on it, like way up high. Or like something, you have some kind of like pole or something like that. And like a fiberglass tent pole. It's like 10 feet from you. Okay, let's do some things here. Okay, so we have this little bit of yellow down here, okay? Let's start kind of tweaking this little area up here a little bit. So here's some pink, okay? It's like a warm pink. You can use any kind of pink. Maybe not like a super, super dark, bright pink, though. This one's a little bit kind of duller looking, okay? Or if you only have like a super bright one, you can use it, but what you do is you just kind of wipe it off a little bit before you start applying it, so you're applying a very dry version of it, okay? All right, so see this right here? You can get what this is doing like this, or on here. You've heard about, do you know what analogous colors are? They're colors that are right next to each other on the color wheel. So see that right there? I just added a little bit of pink in there, so see how different it is from this other area? When I like something, I tend to keep adding it on everywhere. So sometimes, like for me, I'm gonna have to put the brakes on a little bit if I want variation. Okay, so see that little glowing pink right there? It's like an analogous color in there. When you put analogous colors next to each other, optically it creates a color glow. Now we're kind of putting it next to each other in some instances where I'm hitting some white of the paper, but we're also just kind of layering it over other tones underneath, and that color underneath, colors show through this top layer. So that's also kind of creating another glowing layer, like a glazed turkey. Yeah, it's like a richer looking skin the more you glaze it, right? So, okay, so here we're going like that. Keep some of this just as is, but see that little glowing area right there, that little tiny pink? And see, it's up here. It's like, I don't know, you know what I mean? If someone didn't see that, I don't know if they would kind of, it'd be discernible, but maybe it's kind of like glowing a little bit more for some reason. It just adds to the overall richness. And, people see this right here, then you've done something like that. They probably won't know what you did to achieve it because it's just like buried within the color scheme. But yeah, it creates a color glow. Maybe it's glowing already, but it just bumps it up by whatever, 10% in those areas. And then if we, leave some areas just as is, these areas kind of stand out a little bit more. A fun color to add in might be, let's try this blue right here. Blue within a really light blue. I'd want this one to be ideally a little bit more kind of jewel-like and brighter than it is. It's really dull. It's a good blue, dull not in terms of interest, but in terms of intensity. But that blue right there, it's a really pale one. And let me see, I don't know if on your screens if you can see this. Actually, I can't see it in front of me. I can see it a little bit. I don't know, can you see that changing a little bit right there? Maybe it depends on what screen your computer device has, 4K or something like that. But see that little tinge right there? I don't know if you can see it, but it's different than this color right here. It's just like white, but this has that little bluish tinge, okay? But do you see how that really makes a pretty big difference? Oh, I still want some of that white up there though. But let's put a little bit of this blue right in here. I'm coming into this brown area. So sometimes things look a little, I mean, it looked rich up here overall, but if I look at these individual areas, okay, that's where I just added in this like blue tone in here. And you can add when it's a really, really pale version of something. See, I can go right over with all these oranges and brown tones and warm tones, and it doesn't really interfere with it because it is such a super pale light value and an intensity color, so you can just go right over other warm tones, if need be. So like here, right here, there's a little bit of that bluish tone tinge. Let's put a little right here. Not in the yellow, but there's a little bit of an area right here. So I've just kind of come into these little areas a little bit with some of that blue tone, and that creates a little bit of a different feel. See right here, here, and here, but then there's white up there. There's white right here, and then a little bit of blue right here. Let me see if I can get that a little. I don't want to come in here too much because I don't know, I might have put some color over that star already, but. Okay, so what that did too, it's not really like a super cool blue, but what we've done here is that little bit of blue, to me, shows up too because it's the only kind of cooler temperature within here, okay? So it stands out a little bit, so you've taken, here's your temperature scale, you have mid-area warm and cool tones down here, and it was all this area up here, and you've just kind of gone into that cool temperature a little bit, so you've increased your temperature range, whatever, by quite a bit by just adding that little bit in there. All right, so let's see. I'm looking at this right now. It's pretty dark around the edge. Okay, let's do some coloring on here, and then I'm gonna add in some black around on the perimeter. Okay. It might be a good idea to do it now, but I think if I do that and then I color over it, it might smear more, so. Let's just go in with some coloring and we'll see what happens here. Okay, so going into these rocks a little bit. Adding some specific areas of tone. I'm just starting off with really light colors. It doesn't look like I'm shading at all because it's really, really quite light in there. chairs right there, casting a little shadow, maybe. I don't know if my imagery is going to stamp over these alcohol applications really well. Maybe I should stamp out my cacti. I almost forgot about that. Let's see here. Yeah, let's get a little bit more vertical imagery in here at this point in time. Okay, let's go with the saguaros, I think. It just kind of makes sense on this super elongated composition here. I was thinking about almost doing bookmark, but I thought, bookmarks are really cool. But with everything that I want to add in here, I wouldn't be able to get things to fit. I mean, it would be like, super narrow, and I wouldn't have any, room for things on the side of this, like test one, If I was to do this again, I would do a different format. Maybe, have a kind of a more narrow and very specific composition. As opposed to having like, so many different figures and things on the side and cacti and everything like that going on. I just wanted to load this one up a little bit more. Okay, hopefully this stamps out over the top of that alcohol ink that I just laid out there. Cross your fingers. Let's hold this down a little bit longer here too. Skeeters love you too. Yeah, don't you hate that? When you're out there, it's like the last thing you really feel like doing out in kind of nature or whatever, or wherever you're at, where the mosquitoes are. Some friends and I went camping at this one campground, and there were about 5 different parties driving down, and one of our friends, we were all in the campsite already set up, and they couldn't leave until later. He had to get off, he couldn't take off earlier from work. So it's like, we got a hold of him. Can you bring, go to Big Five and get some like mosquito netting and like some whatever, that spray. And okay, that went on just fine. And so they went to and just at the local sporting goods store, picked up several of those mosquito hat netting things that you put on your head. And I can't sleep if I have a mosquito in my room or in my tent. I cannot sleep until that thing is dead. I'm not gonna fall asleep with a mosquito flying around, and waking up with a bunch of welts. So, yeah. Anyway, this location right here doesn't have any, so we're cool. Okay, so adding these kind of larger saguaros right there, okay? And then what I'll do is I usually like to do this type of thing, like right here. I put it on this side too, but maybe not. Maybe I'll do this side and then put some right over here. I can't get too close to her. Maybe like right behind these rocks, and then other ones back here. So it goes like taller, medium, smaller, like near, middle, far distance or something like that. Okay. All right, so this one's a little bit of a smaller, slightly smaller, well, quite a bit smaller, but let's see. All right. Die-based inks. Again, working on the glossy cardstock here. Okay, I have some rocks there. I'm going to have to mask them off. Okay, holding down a little bit longer. There's a lot of ink on here, so we got to let that ink transfer here. We have a mosquito repellent solar charged. When did you get that, Linda? Was that something that was like invented in the past 15 years or so or something like that? Yeah, there's new things too that people have, like this. There's like this perimeter thing too, right? Is that what that thing does? I was looking at this thing on, I don't know where it was. I think it was on YouTube. You can set this perimeter up of these pod things, and I think it's, I don't know, it's good for a big area. That I hadn't seen before. More of these perimeter-oriented types of things. Okay, so we have that like that. And close near far. Okay, let's see. I'll put these ones up here, kind of higher up in the composition. They're going to be floating a little bit, so I'll anchor them down with a few more like rocky textures with the tiny rocks, okay? So like this right here, there. Okay, so it kind of anchors things down a little bit. It's kind of good, I guess, in the vertical, super vertical, you know, formatted scene. Vertically formatted. Okay, and we'll get some textures down here. Like about like that. Okay. I was going to put the Joshua trees. Joshua trees would be a lot closer to my whatever heart or whatever, just because those are the types of you know, trees that I was often camping around in the deserts of the high deserts of California. Mojave Preserve and Joshua Tree, little in Death Valley, not in the valley itself, but on the higher elevations around the valley. You kind of drive through certain areas of Joshua trees. All right, let's heat set again, and let's see how that goes here. All right. Now, as I dry that off, the vibrancy of this gets a little bit less because of that dry ink. But if you spray seal this, it'll bring back a nice vibrancy. But you see that little bluish tinge in there? How that kind of adds to that whole richness, you know, the surface area richness. Let's see. They've been around for a while now. Our mosquitoes are deadly. Yeah, yeah. I'd get eaten alive up in your region with all that water and probably lakes nearby, rivers. As long as you're in their area, it's safe from all bugs. Oh, that's cool. Okay, let's get to work here again with these. Not that one right there. Let's see. Here's a couple warm grays. I don't know if these ones are going to be very visible at all, but I kind of start off with these types that just you can't see very much because it kind of gets me in the swing of it, of working with a different medium on this scene right here. So I usually start adding in my media, whatever, slowly and methodically. It's like if I'm doing highlighting with white paint pens, I start adding it in the white first, just to kind of get in the flow of it. Okay, so that's just this color right here. Okay, it's like a, I don't know what it'd be like, called like pale flesh or something like that. That's what it seems like it would have been. One time we were up at in Joshua Tree for a meteor shower, and I we had our place staked out and everything like that, and then like people were coming in still at all hours of the night, and it was driving me nuts because they were really loud and everything like that. So I turned on my lantern just to kind of get a ton of light out, and hoping they would move on. Because you know, there's tons of areas out there. Okay, you can have like your own area, but I don't know, they're hanging back. But so I turned my lantern on, pretty bright, you know, in case people were doing night photography or something. Because you can see how irritated I was. And then the thing that was kind of interesting was my lantern was attracting all these flying bugs, insects around that lantern. And then I've never seen it before, but these desert toads, I think there were a couple of them. Man, they were feasting, you know. They never had like so much to eat in their life. It's just because that light was attracting so many bugs, and they were just like hanging out right next to the light and just, yeah, just feasting. I've seen desert toads out before, but not at nighttime like that. All right, adding in some tone in here. I want to get some extra texturing in here too. Let's try to do it with some really, really pale tones first. Like this one's fairly discernible. I want to get a little bit of this kind of built up on there so that I can kind of blend in, hopefully, some other alcohol inks on top of it. It's easier to blend in if you have kind of a slathering of you know, that alcohol from other colors first. And then if I add it in there, I have to blend it out. The one that I have to blend out is kind of sitting on top of a layer of a lighter color, and then again it makes it easier for me to blend in. It's not like it's like a, I don't know, whatever, it's like a makeshift technique for the absence of technique. Okay, I haven't taken like a Copic marker class before or anything like that. Okay, and I don't know how to use these really. All right, so adding in this. This one's like a really pale, kind of warm brownish gray. All right. Let's see here. See, like here, I have this kind of, there's this area of light in here, but I've divided it up like right here. Here's some shadow right in here. But otherwise it's like light, 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 instead of having that whole thing. So like right in here, this is like big area of just like glowing light. So I'm going in here and just kind of bisecting it like this. Otherwise, you know, that whole area, there's just like this one big mono value oval, you know, which might look okay, but I like to kind of vary it a little bit more. So let's see. Okay, I hardly ever use my blender pen, but maybe I will here. I don't even know where it is. Here we go. It doesn't blend great on here because this paper is somewhat absorbent. But if I hit it early enough and I kind of work it, it starts to blend out something a little bit more. All right, let's see. Let's get to the fun part of the scene, that one little like half-inch flame. It's like in portraits or something like that. Anytime we were in school and we're doing like a portrait, if it was a painting, the funnest thing for me was like when you're doing someone's eyeball, you know, there's that one little speck of light in their eye, like on the, I think it's on the pupil. Adding that in was the fun part for me. Okay, so a little bit of flame right there, and I left the tip of it kind of white, okay? So I'm going down low with a little bit of this. I mean, that's a little bit too much orange. And then let's see, let's go in and blend that orange in a little bit more. Okay, like so. I'm going back to yellow. And then right, like in those coals right to this, I don't know if you can even see it, but I left some kind of slightly lighter areas right to the right and left of that flame. And I'm going to add in this red-ish tinge right in there. Because I've spent a lot of time sitting around campfires. Can't have campfires out at some places now because of the fire hazards. So sometimes my friend just brought like a propane thing with a little, I don't know, whatever heating element on there, and that worked okay. But when you don't have a campfire when you're camping, at least on a couple of the nights, it seems like something's kind of like lacking to me. Okay, kind of warming up a little bit of this side area, like it's reflecting some of that warm light on the side of the ring, maybe. I'll put a little bit of this warm light on these chairs too, like it's like flickering around there. Okay. Now, this area in here is looking really anemic to me, really dry. So let's go in and add in some extra tone in there. Like I said, it'll get richer though when I spray it. It'll kind of revive what some of these areas look like when they were wet. It'll get deeper. You can see that right there, how much more intense. Well, that happens when that'll happen when you spray seal it too. Okay. But I just want to know what I'm kind of working with here. With these extra things that I'll be adding into the scene. Let's see, let's go around to the perimeter too. I want to dampen it a little bit because I'm going to bring in some black into that area as well. Okay. Let's switch off. Let me use one of my other paper towels that I was applying some of those browns with. There's just some other inks in there, so when I'm dabbing in here, it won't just be straight black. It'll be those other colors that have already been in there. All right, let's see how this looks on here. When you're going to black, you're going pretty dark like that, okay? But I want to close this off a little bit more because I want to bring in some kind of visual attention with that fire down that way. So the more I frame off the edge, the more kind of containment for the scene there might be. Sometimes blending in black, depending on how wet your pad is, can be kind of tricky. So really utilize the drier version of it for, I don't know, 90% of your applications. And then, you know, when it just gets way too dry, ink up again. Sometimes people keep their black pads. When I started watching those Stamp Wars videos, and then people's, during the Stamp War, and then afterwards when they were doing their scene on the, you know, or their card on their own, what they do is in Stamp Wars, they use the set, and then they do on their own channels like another project with whatever products they were given in the challenge. But it's like, okay, I can see, you know, where some techniques that I do, if the pad is really, really juicy, where it can be trickier to apply some of those techniques, because I use a lot of drier versions of my inks when I'm doing, you know, certain types of blending, okay? But if you were using a pad that's like 5 times juicier than the one that I'm using, like a couple taps of it in there and taking it in there like that, you're working with like a different tool practically. Even though it's the same tool, the same ink maybe, but just having something that's so much wetter, you know, it changes the rate of application, okay, that you would apply for kind of an easier application. It'll go on faster, but it's more like super spontaneous, like someone doing like brush calligraphy or something like that. You know, that's a really spontaneous and instantaneous type of application of media to paper. So you have to have more touch with it, you know, to get it right. That's something that I don't, you know, I try to avoid having to do. So I just apply things really kind of, you know, methodically. or more methodically, just with more applications, okay? But with just drier ones. All right, but see this right here? I'm not applying everything like perfectly even. I'm going like right up here. Here, it's coming around in here, coming around a little bit like that. Like this right here. See that right there? And this area down here is becoming a little bit more defined. All right. Oh, by the way, if anyone has these stamps right here, when you stamp out those figures like that, I did it in one of my other videos too, but don't put too much pressure up by the hands, otherwise it looks like they're, I don't know, they've got whatever, clubbed hands or something like that. It stamps out too, you know, it smashes their hands down, okay? So when you use this, just put more pressure on this lower portion, you know, even pressure up top, but don't, you know, ink it up and like press down too hard. And that'll be anything kind of leading off. Like I think I did it with this one too, these just two little ropes here. You put pressure down in that where most of the mass of the image is. And if you have these little strangler types of things like that. And I have it a lot in these sets right here. Before it was things like the fisherman, it has this this rod going out. And at the tip of the rod, if you press too much, it's going to kind of smash. So yeah, things like that. Watch out for that. All right, let's see here. This might be kind of fun with a little bit of extra effects too, like glitters or something like that. But let's go in and add some additional highlights here. And I wanted to do it with certain colors here coming from that fire ring or fire pit. Let's do that. That one might be a little bit of a greenish yellow, but let's start with that here. And then we'll move into some other colors. We'll put some of these colors up in the sky too. Tony's Magical Arts and Crafts, awesome. Hello. It's a cool name there. We do like magic here. And arts and crafts, of course. All right. Adding in some of these yellow little touches up here. I don't know if you can see that at all, okay? It's a, you know, it's this like yellow ochre, so it doesn't show up a huge amount in this area right here. But it will add an additional layer in here of colored, I don't know, whatever, texture. All right, okay, so down here, I'm thinking that maybe I should go a little bit darker in here because you can't see this as much, but let's see. I want to create a trail of little touches in here. So I'll try to do that here. I'll build it up. I'm working around a little bit of a different set of parameters here than what I'm normally going for. Because I usually don't have some kind of like light source that's going up into the sky like that, you know. So I'm kind of treating everything as if it were, you know, light source up here and reflected light down here, not a light source down here. So let's see how it goes. All right. It's like a fluorescent-ish yellow. This one here, sometimes these are real fluorescent-y looking colors, they're real watery. They might look good on a white piece of paper, but as soon as you're putting them over something else, that other color's showing through them, so it's not very visible. But I thought maybe if I can get a little bit of that tone in here, it stands out pretty good, but I think when it dries, it's not going to be very visible. It'll dry darker than what it looks like. It looks pretty good, though, when wet. Okay, so I have this, I don't know if you can see it there. I have these little dots coming up right in here. You really only see it where it's contrasting against like a darker background like that, but I want this to kind of look like it's going up there, and these two figures here are like, you know, whatever. I forgot to look outside in that planetary alignment on Friday after the live stream. Did anyone see that? Okay, like that. I don't know if you can see it. There's this column of kind of yellowish magic embers. All right. Now I haven't gone to white yet because I'm kind of setting the foundation. It's like I said, kind of getting the getting into the flow of things here. Let's go with, yeah, let's see. Okay, here's a couple of my white pens. Let's go into the white. I was going to use a little bit of this beige here, but let's move into the white here. Oh, I'm glad you like it, Tony. It's like the desert spirits here, yeah. Okay, so here's white. I did this scene a few years ago. I think it was called, I don't know, it was called Star Birth or something like that, but it was this, it was this lantern fish, and it was like an underwater, overwater scene. I think I had this horizon thing, so it's supposed to represent like this fish in the deep sea, and then he had these bubbles coming up. Not that, you know, fish have bubbles coming up from them, but it's like out of its mouth, and then it rose up in the sea, out into the night air. So it was like, you know, the birth of stars, you know, from a, you know, a fish. So that's what this one is kind of. Starbirth 2, the sequel. All right, so I don't know if you can see this right here. I'll emphasize it a little bit more with some texture. I'll put some soft, kind of glowing light around some of these, I don't know what they are, embers or whatever. Pixie dust. Okay, like that. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit more kind of apparent here. And this is where I was wondering. I was wondering if, you know, kind of putting a couple of those little holographic holographic glitters, chunky glitters, would look kind of interesting. Like in this column here, it would, you might be able to see it, but then if you kind of turn it a little bit, you know, some of it would be a little bit more reflective. Okay, let's add in some highlights in here too. Maybe a warmer highlight would be better, but there's more contrast in the white, so I'll just do that. Yeah, these white contrast highlights seem a little bit strange, you know, considering maybe it's the fire that's doing the casting. But again, let's just go for a little bit more contrast with the white here. Or maybe, let me see here. This one's not that much light, darker than white, so maybe let's use this one. Only you can prevent forest fires. We need that campaign a little bit more with these horrific, you know, once every whatever fire events of you know, lifetime or whatever, you know, 100-year fires. All right. Yeah, okay, this one's working really good. It's just a little, it's light, but it's a little bit more subtle than that white. I can add it more freely in here, and it kind of relates to the, that fire pit a little bit more. Okay. Tony, do you have a web YouTube channel? That sounds like a web YouTube channel to me. All right, a little bit more highlighting around that pit area. Okay, and let's see here. I think I do. I want to have a column of eagles, maybe, to emphasize this kind of rising kind of structure. Everyone, check out Tony's channel there. I'm gonna check it out just for that, just for the name alone. Like I said, we like all those. Those words here. All right, let's see. Check out the eagles like this. I'm gonna try to make it look like there's a column of them, like they're going up like a okay, I already forgot the name of it. Thermal. Like they're going up like a thermal, like, you know what I mean, like circling up into the night sky or something like that. I think it would kind of, we have these two characters, and I want, some additional imagery to pull upwards. But maybe not out of the scene completely, because that would be bad feng shui. We lost all the whatever, the luck right out of the top of the picture. Maybe that's why we've kind of capped it off up here or something like that. Okay, let me see this one right here. I have to kind of place it where I can kind of see it, of course. Let's see, let's go a little bit lower right here. All right, like that. And one more, right? Groupings of, what is it, odd numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yeah, so we're kind of S-curving it up there too, like that. All right, which one of these eagles did I use? Was it that? Okay, it was this one. There's 4 little tiny eagles on this sky set here, so and they're facing the opposite way, so I'm stamping them out just so I can get my bearings on how they'll look here. Okay, let's see. Let's go like this. This one, in theory, would be maybe a little bit smaller, but I can't adjust my... Yeah, that added to it, I think. That helped. All right, so we have that. Okay. A little bit more, I don't know, whatever, whimsical. All right, let's see. Let's get this those eagles dry so that I can apply some pigment ink over the top. All right. It's your crafting, your fellow crafting family here. Your extended family of yeah, hands-on crafters here. That's one thing about like crafts and everything like that. I always said it's kind of interesting, like at well, stamp stores you know, for sure. Yeah, I was talking to someone about Joann's, all those Joann's closing. I said I just thought they, you know, like there was one Joann's near us and around us, and it, you know, it was an older place and it was not in a really great looking, you know, location, but they didn't need to be because you know, like people that sew and things like that, they'll go to that store. They're gonna find it, you know. So I wasn't quite sure about being in all of these brand new kind of, you know, whatever strip malls and everything like that, and like with high walking traffic. I wasn't quite sure of how many like impulse sales they were pulling down to pay for probably, I don't know, probably 5 to 10 times the rent of those other places that were a little bit off the main drag. But they started opening up everywhere, you know. So I thought, you know, I mean, if the store has stuff that people want, that, you know, in this community, they'll definitely go to it. You know, it doesn't matter where it is. They'll drive to it too, you know. But going back to that, yeah, it's kind of cool being in, like, you know, the things that aren't around as much anymore are like stamp stores, and being around people that, you know, everyone at that store has, you have something in common with. Or like in extreme kind of examples were conventions, you know, you go to like stamp conventions, and scrapbook conventions were even bigger, but like stamp conventions, you know, if there's a couple thousand people there, it's like you're in a room, you know, a convention room with 1,000 other people, you know, with the same, you know, interest as you, which is kind of fun. Yeah, that kind of speak our, you know, that speak the language. Okay, so I'm applying white pigment ink right in here. Okay, let's see. I was mentioning this last week, I think. I was saying when you put like a little bit of pigment ink across one of the bird's wings like that, it makes them look a little bit more dimensional like that sometimes. All right, so this is changing the textures a little bit. You can see the different texture up here than in the rest of the scene. I want more of that texture in there. Everything's like really crisp and, you know, but then when you add that in there, it's kind of like glowing now. So I really like that look of it. I have a little bit of that white right there, and this is white ink, so I can add that probably in there and have it kind of make sense as a you know, reflected glowing. I don't know, it's out in space, so it's not like moisture. I don't know. Well, I don't know. I have the cloud up there, so I guess that is moisture. But do you see that little difference in texture right there? It's like dust. So it's like a, you know, we're in space here, so it's like a reflected light or stardust in there. All right, so I'm putting a little bit on that bird right there, so it kind of, you know, it integrates that bird into the light is what you're doing. So you're saying that there's light in front of that wing right there, or moisture that's being illuminated. So you put them into the scene a little bit more like that, okay? Here's this woman right here. conjuring or doing whatever, communion with nature, the night sky. And I can put some of this around her because there, again, there's some of that white of the paper still kind of remaining, retained. So I'm just kind of putting some of that. I don't know if I want to put too much. Well, maybe. Let's see what it looks like. I guess that looks okay like that. You know, it changes her a little bit from this, which is just like the opposite type of, you know, image, but she's a little bit smaller. I guess it changes around a little bit. I don't know if this white ink, you know, will look like right in here. Let's see, because I made it really yellowish in here, but let's see if we can get away with some of it. When you apply it like this, some of that color does show through, so it's not going to be like completely white, but let's see. I think it looks pretty good. See this right here? I'm putting in a little bit of that white on the side of her dress that's facing the light like that, maybe. Now I do some white pigment ink applications like on the top of like darker papers, you know, when you start off with darker papers. So it's like, but I usually create like a white moon or something like that in those scenes as a light source. And then it kind of makes sense visually when you start applying some of these other applications on there. Okay, let's see right here. Yeah, it looks a little more varied, I guess. Okay. And, all right, let's see here. Let me see if I can get in here with like a nice yellow, I think. I'm going to put like some larger dots of yellow in here. Here, this is a better one maybe. And I'm going to illuminate like it's a glowing little ball. I'm doing it in yellow because I think it'll relate to that. It'll connect to this fire pit a little bit more. And let's see how it goes. Sometimes when I put white over something, it dulls it out so much. So I put a little bit of white over that, you know, with the pigment ink to making it glow. Specifically when I'm doing like fireflies or something like that. Sometimes I start off with a little green little dot and then I add white over it. And then I can't see the green anymore. So I have to add a little dot of green over the top of that again. So that's what I want to do here. I want to start to do this kind of glowing embers into the night sky type of whatever look. All right, so there's some in here. You probably can't tell at all because it's yellow is darker than white, so it doesn't stand out too much like that. But let's emphasize it though with a little bit of white pigment. Here, let me heat set that a little bit. Into buying online. Yeah, Bonnie, it's like that buying in person just there's so many less options, in-person options for just everything across the board. And when you get these big box stores, you know, that are going out too, I'm just praying, you know, that you know, like Hobby Lobby and Michael's, you know, sometimes I wonder about it. But yeah, if it turns into all online, it's about, I don't know, I mean, YouTube's out there, so we can kind of find some discovery that way. But uh, yeah, you just didn't, there was nothing like going into a store, where basically anyone that works there is, you know, if they're not an expert on it, just everything in there, they're pretty close as opposed to like a larger, big box stores that, where a lot of people in there, don't even, aren't crafters or something like that at all, much less, stampers or scrapbookers or whatever, um, whoever uses specific types of things. So that was always one of the big things with those stores. You didn't have a lot of people that can answer questions. And now even those ones are going, though. That's what I'm saying, So you went with from a kind of an infrastructure of, you know, experts on, just about, everything in these little independent stores to, I don't know what you'd have to kind of rely on, in terms of, discovery or something like I could, I guess different channels, but you'd have to, be kind of watching it. So that's what, when I went into stores, I'm in the industry and everything like that, but I don't know about all these different accessories out there. So it's like, oh, Kevin, have you used this yet? What's that? It's the Hero Arts unicorn white pigment ink. It's like, oh, is that's better than the color box? Yeah, it's like much whiter, and it's like everyone's like, oh, yeah, nodding, So it's like, okay, you got to get the the Hero Arts one, or something like that. So that's how you find out about all that type of stuff. Or sometimes when I was going to conventions recently, recently, relatively speaking, in the last few years, after not going for a lot of years, it was kind of nice to find out about all kinds of different materials because I was kind of out of the loop. A lot of people think I know a lot about like the different types of inks and stuff like that because I have this channel, but like this ink pad's like 20, it's probably 25 years old, certain types of things that I'm using still. But yeah, like Wink of Stella, I can think about all these like different products that I was introduced to. Almost like, I've got a bad memory, but it's like when someone introduces you to something new that that you can really use. It's like from a craft, from a crafter's standpoint, it's like a life-changing. I can remember when someone asked me if I've ever used those color box stylus tools, and I used those ones to, to apply my inks for years. But I was at the Pampered Stamper in Arizona, Mesa, Arizona, when someone asked me about that. It was like enlightenment, media enlightenment. But that's missing now. Somewhat, right? All right, let's see. Let's get a little bit of tone around some of these. See this right here? So see, here's these little kind of twinkly, glowing lights, right here that I'm trying to emphasize. I might have to emphasize it a little bit more with some, like I said, some like glitter or something like that. Another layer of texture, it might be kind of subtle, but then when you go like this, it'll be kind of twinkly. And I can do it in the yellow glitter coming up from that yellow fire. Not in this live stream right here. I'll add that in later. And I think I want some different word stamps up here too, where I'm going to do these word stamps or a quote or something like that. And I'll matte this off with something, probably a gold mirrored matte. And then I'll stamp out some words on a different piece of paper, and then I'll matte them in the same matting. And then I think right here, and here, I have like these different words coming in like that, or here, something like that. And then like that I don't know, yeah, I don't know. I keep going back to that glitter because that's just something like that I have there. But something kind of extra flashy, when you go like this, it'll kind of twinkle up there like that. And I think that gold glitter will match well with the mirrored gold kind of framing, matting going around this. So we'll have to give that a try here. And I think that'll complete this card really nicely, potentially. All right, a little bit more highlighting. A little more lighting on this chairs right there, like so. A little bit glary with the glossy cardstock, like that. But anyways, yeah, night camping with a full starry night, no mosquitoes, and yeah, it's like t-shirt weather. Perfect. All right. Thanks for checking it out. And yeah, we'll add in those extra little elements, and I'll post. I might do a video of just adding those elements, and I'm not sure. If I don't, it'll be on posted on Facebook or on Pinterest. I need to start doing stuff on Pinterest. I haven't been doing the Pinterest lately, but yeah, the Stampscapes Facebook group, or just you can see it under my account too if anyone's on Facebook and wants to see it. So I'll try to do some short video of the, maybe I'll get all the components ready and I'll just add them in or something like that, or do a quick video of just what it turned out to be on a later one or an upcoming video. So yeah, I think a couple little touches, not a huge amount of glitter, but just like a few little trail of like maybe 7 little tiny pieces or something like that. I think would be really cool. I haven't really done them in like multiple color schemes, I don't think either, but maybe like yellow or gold and maybe like red or even pink would be kind of cool up here. I think it would add an extra little kind of magical element to it, whimsical. Something that Tony might like with the magical arts and crafts, All right, folks. Thanks, Darlene. Thanks, Bonnie. Thanks, everyone, for joining in, checking it out. All right. Hope to see you on the next live stream.